of the Orleans Finance Committee, and I'd like to apologize if I made anybody come at 5 o'clock. I made an error on the agenda. The meeting is at 5:30, so.
We got to know each other.
There you go. I'm glad, I'm glad to hear for that, but my apologies. I think there was one person online, so I just want to say that was my error. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone online for public comment?
No hands raised.
Okay, then I would like to make a slight change in the agenda and take item 4, the Council on Aging temporary $100,000 increase in the revolving fund spending limit, and put that ahead of the fire rescue station, because I think the fire rescue station is going to take a little longer conversation than the Council on Aging. So, Judy, do you want to just take a moment to explain to us?
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Judy Wilson, the director at the Council on Aging and Senior Center. I'm hoping this is a simple request. The ceiling for our program revolving fund, the expenditure ceiling, is set at town meeting. And last year it was set at $75,000. Our program revolving fund is the fund that we use when we collect money for programs, and when we spend money for programs, it comes in and out of that account. I noticed at the beginning of the month that we were going to exceed that ceiling, and my understanding is that the formal process for addressing that is through the FinCom and then the Select Board. As of today, the ceiling is set at $75,000, the expenditure ceiling. These are not these aren't town tax supported dollars. They're dollars that we collect for programs and then we spend for programs. So as of today, we have expended $71,143 from that account, and we have taken in $77,387 in that account. Just for reference, back in FY23, we expended $63,127. That increase really is a reflection of the increase in activity that we have been having in the last few years. We have more programs. Our programs generally, almost all exclusively, have waiting lists for them. They're running at capacity. So we have more money coming in, more money coming out. We're not trying to make money, we're just trying to fund the programs. The town doesn't fund programs that we do, with the exception of the supportive day program. So this funds our fitness programs, our environmental programs, our meal programs. This is the funding mechanism outside of grants for all of our programs. So we're looking to exceed or increase that expenditure limit to $100,000. At the annual town meeting in May, we will be increasing it for the following, for FY27 year, to $100,000, and we're seeking to do that right now. We are at 95% of our ceiling for expenditures, and we're at about 84% of the fiscal year. So I know we will exceed it. So we're looking to increase it to $100,000.
Any comments or questions?
I move that we approve the increase.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there's no one online, so I think we can do this without having to take a roll call vote. So Judy, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, and
Unanimous
thank you for
approval.
putting me
Thank
up.
you. Once again, my apologies for getting you out early. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, this is a discussion of the Ted Galante presentation about the fire rescue station. And we have invited Kevin, who would like to make a short presentation with some slides for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not provide these to you because I just finished them about 20 minutes ago, but these are more just to kind of set the stage, and Mark Reel is here, as is the chief, as you might want to get into details of what was presented to the Select Board last week from Ted Galante Associates in terms of the advancement. But I just put these together with three main thoughts about our transparency to date, how responsive we've been, and how respectful we are of the ideas going forward. So in the transparency bucket and collaboration effort, this project has really gone in such a way of listening to our chief, listening to our consultant, staff over many, many years. You guys all know the studies are there. They go back decades in terms of the safety issues, the responsiveness needs of the facility. So, Chief, you've made the need extremely clear for all of us. And I would just note here, unlike other Cape Cod communities who have multiple stations that include a headquarters and some have multiple substations, Orleans feels that, and the chief has confirmed this through studies, this location on Eldridge Parkway is the best from a call response standpoint, and a single site is all Orleans needs as an HQ, headquarters. We do not need these substations. So again, I know a number of you are looking at cost evaluations and critical of the numbers put together, but just please keep in mind, as you may look at comparables, we have one HQ that needs to make sure all of the needs are met. Whereas when you have satellites, you can disparate those requirements. So again, voters approved in May of 25 at annual town meeting, 4.5 million. That was a significant vote, and one that I think you all know had no peep of conversation. I mean, there was limited discussion. It passed overwhelmingly. And again, the expectation we all made to the voters then, and I felt I carried this forward, is we said we will bring construction funding back to them this May. This is what we told the voters. So I feel the design funding was significant. It should cover us well through the design development, going out to bid, and support us through construction. So we've got an excellent team on that. We've also taken great care to collaborate with our neighbors. Orleans Elementary School, as you know, has been very sensitive to impacts through, during, and after the station. We've met now a couple of times with our regional school district because they're an important abutter, as well as two dentists. And those are going to continue. We've also, thanks to voters last fall, acquired one critical parcel, and pending this annual town meeting, we'll acquire another parcel that will really make the station, in terms of its design, development, a true public-facing facility from Eldridge Parkway. So the chief won't be down in a bowl in future years. But it does do a couple things. One is it reduces cost because of these new parcels that are able to incorporate into the design, and it does minimize those impacts. So it actually should accelerate the schedule. Responsiveness. This new station design must not only meet the needs of the Orleans headquarters for fire rescue now, but for the next 50 years. That's what the chief, working with the designers and his entire membership, have really evaluated in terms of the space, the programming needs, keeping the apparatus separate from admin, personnel training, and living quarters. But this new facility will truly reflect the values that Orleans puts on our environment, on our health and safety, and its design, both for those in the house, the firehouse, but over the long term, which is why in the charge we did put that shall be net zero, because we just see that the long-term evaluation of facilities, both in terms of construction, but operation and maintenance, is so critical not to burden future taxpayers. So the select board did clarify the meaning of net zero, and it's very simple. The energy you need for the facility on site, produce it or meet it through measures on site. Pretty straightforward. The last thing is just being respectful. The select board put as our top priority goals that we need to make sure we put this project forward. That's why we put a rigorous Fire Rescue Building Committee charge together. As you know, when we were selecting committee members, we had incredible turnout of people interested from all range of capabilities. So we expanded the number of members from that initial charge. It's made a very thoughtful, you watch the meetings, I'm here at a number of them, very thoughtful, very considerate, and diverse. The architect team and our owner's project manager are truly the best in class. Tony has recognized us too. They are incredible in terms of listening, bringing ideas. They have decades of experience in municipal public safety buildings. So again, from the standpoint of being respectful in ideas, the vote that I'm hoping will be very successful and supportive at this town meeting will also not be the last for public input and engagement, as well as from you and others. We've got fire rescue meetings scheduled. The chief will be there in terms of asking the team this Saturday. We've got follow-up meetings coming up, pre-town meeting, but these will continue. The design development all the way to construction set of drawings will be continual iteration of opportunities to participate. And again, as you want to get into the TGAS presentation, I just wanted to kind of set the table with that backdrop because we've done an awful lot to date, and it's good to make note of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Tony?
As the liaison to that committee, I think you people ought to know, I spoke, oh, by the way, Kevin, you're the first politician I've ever heard who was succinct and got through everything. I've never heard that before. Anyway. Very good. Let me say, though, I've attended all the committee meetings, and I attended, as well as the select board meeting with Galante. I spoke to Ted, and one of the things I said to him was, look, this was we put a lot of pressure on, we the town, to get this done really quickly. Have you had a chance to go through and see where we might save some money and without reducing the operational excellence of what Chief Daring has done? And he said, and I asked if I could say, if I present that to the town, can I say that he hasn't done it, and if he finds stuff as he has more time to look at it, he will certainly incorporate that. And the budget he presented to the committee had a high and a low, depending on a variety of things, which I can't remember, but there was a high and a low, and it was about $8 or $9 million difference. So there is probably places where he can save. And I'd like to remind you that this is an up to vote. This is not a vote to say you can spend $60 million. It will vote up to, and I have great confidence, having listened to Ted and talking to him as a side. I think that he will find ways to do it. He's done a lot of these projects over the years, and he's on board for finding savings that won't curb operations, but will bring in a better cost for the town if he can find them.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. Any other comments, Peter?
Yeah, just 2 points. One is, I think, the emphasis on the way the building is designed to kind of handle the contamination, kind of hot issue returning from calls that's not possible now, but in terms of individuals' health going forward, I mean, I think that's a huge issue and maybe should be kind of a center point. The other thing I was just going to mention, just kind of scanning, when you look at some of the cost comparisons that were presented in one of the studies of other stations in other towns, I mean, there was a huge dollar gap and maybe a little more explanation there having to do with substations, whatever that kind of drove that discrepancy, because a few people have kind of asked that question of, why would one town be at 30 million and we potentially could be at 50 or 60? So that potentially might be some questioning that might come up, and it'd be good to kind of have the answer for that.
Nick?
Let me support this and add another dimension. And the other dimension, I don't know how else to articulate it, but the business of each fire department is different. We run 4, soon to be 5 ambulances for a community that balloons to 23,000 people a year in summer. And we are, at best, 28.5 minutes from the hospital. At worst, 45, Other places are within 8 minutes from 3 hospitals. They have an average age of population in their 40s, and they run, for similar populations, they run 2 ambulances, So clearly, the calls here have more to do with the health care than anything else. And we have to be aware of that. The other thing is that we run a dormitory for people who come from over the bridge, you know, not from 15 minutes away. So we can't put them in, you know, in a World War II ship's hold, you know. So I think these are important things because the design of the building and the cost of the building forget the fact that we are, the further away you get from the bridge, the cost goes up or whatever, you know. All these things have to be factored in, and I think to just look at the absolute numbers that are presented in one study in page 132, you know, and all that good stuff, it requires a lot more research behind all that. A quick number stumbling that I've done show that we are well within the range, and I won't bore you with the detailed analysis. I'll be happy to send it to you. Thank you.
Ed?
I strongly agree with Peter, especially with the isolating the contaminants and toxins that our firefighters come back with after.
Those ambulances.
However, how much of a premium are we going to pay to reach this net zero target in terms of construction costs?
Is this far away from the guy over there?
Whomever, I don't,
That's,
Mark, you look like the most knowledgeable about it.
Well, you know, I try. I'm trying. By the end of this whole process, I'll know the building just as well as the chief, I think. Mark Reel, Assistant Town Manager. So in the budget that you've seen, Ed, there's a reference to 800,000 as the net zero premium number, which they believe will cover the costs of the solar and the components that go into making the building net zero. So it's a small percentage of the project that we know will lead to long-term savings of energy costs.
And will that $800,000 investment make the building self-sustaining,
That is the goal.
self-powering?
Net zero, yes.
That-
And as you may have heard, the select board defined that more clearly at last week's meeting to say that net zero means to us that the energy use of the building over a given year will be met with energy created on site.
Are we going to have, is the building going to be equipped with backup power sources?
Yes.
Like oil?
With a diesel
Gas.
generator.
Oh, so it'll be a diesel generator producing electricity?
No, that's for backup. If the power went down, they would have a diesel generator.
Diesel generator will produce the electricity
Yes.
when it's dark? Or
the building is still hooked up to the grid.
Right, but when the grid's not working, oh, okay.
Right, a snowstorm comes and the power's out, the diesel generator kicks on and produces and provides power.
Yeah.
And that, Ed, just so I can add, if you look at any of the state regs on net zero, all public safety facilities, including like Cape Cod Hospital as well, are exempt from the restriction on fossil use. Backup generation with fossil fuel is totally permitted.
Right. But we're not going to fill the basement with furnaces or
No.
boilers. You're just going to have a big generator hanging around outside.
On the outside,
It'll
yeah.
kick in when something happens that causes the panels not to produce.
Right.
But you still be tied into Eversource.
Yes, at night, it's still coming off the grid, so, yeah.
sure, Tony?
I want to thank Mark for putting this Saturday on the event calendar for the town. And I would like, if anybody's listening, on Saturday at the fire station, Ted Galante and his team will be there to answer any questions that citizens of the town will have or that kind of thing. So I recommend that anybody who has the time and interest go to the firehouse at Saturday, what time?
10 a.m. to 12
At 10
p.m.
a.m. to see the, you can ask questions of the architect and designer. You can ask questions of the firefighters and the ambulance people who were there and ask questions about why they need what they need. And I think that's an important thing to do if you're skeptical about voting for this fire station.
Sure, John?
So Kevin, I agree with everything you said. And I'll keep this short because I just want to tell us a little story about my neighbors. So walking my golden retriever Rosedale around the neighborhood, and that is the way to talk to your neighbors, is have a dog. I've said, go to town meeting. Why? Well, you know why. Kevin, your message has not gotten through. Maybe they won't go to town meeting, but to a person they're not convinced. 60 million, they think is a shocker. So the other thing that bothers them is, are you looking at the whole town? There's a comprehensive long-range plan with expensive items. There's other needs like a library. So how would a 60 million, now they're asking such good questions, maybe they should go to town meeting, but there will be people, I think, Kevin, there asking those meetings, those kinds of questions. What were they getting to? Well, let's just say, they were saying it's too expensive, not because, Kevin, there's anything wrong with the numbers. So I couldn't figure it out until a very admirable man in our neighborhood, who had been president of a institution of higher education, said, well, John, you're on the finance committee. Tell me how we got there. Well, of course, I knew how we got there, and then it hit me. And in fact, if we did another study, I think we'd be at the same place. This study has been appropriately from the bottom up. So everything's from the bottom up. He was president of a institution of higher education. I worked for people like that. And I realized, also working for governors, there's another approach that is often taken. It is a top-down executive budget approach that often starts out with a target budget. Not pulling numbers out of the air, but it's a target budget, partly thought to fit in with the overall budget, and usually it is not the same number as the bottom-up process. So his question got me to thinking, because here was the boat I was in. I could not convince them it's not too expensive. But on the other hand, I'm not going to don't want to vote no on a fire station. I don't want to slow down the process. So I thought back to what happened in my career with this executive top-down. I'll tell you in a minute, it wasn't happy, but it produced what I would call, in those organizations, a plan B. It was a lower number. It was a plan B derived by another data set. In our case, I think it would be looking at other towns of 6,000 to 8,000. I say 8,000 because the long-range plan says we could get to 8,000. You look at that data and you come very carefully to what number of people have told me. I had a visitor from Boston, and the first thing he said was, well, look at my town. We didn't spend 60 million, okay? Now, I haven't developed a plan B. I'm not planning to develop a plan B. But I really think Orleans should consider developing a plan B so that Orleans can say, town leaders can say, we have looked at that process. Now, I have to tell you, because I've done this, it's painful. Well, other people would say it's difficult, but honestly, I've been through this. It's painful. Because individuals who are advocating for whether it's a new building on a college campus or in a state budget, they find it painful. However, after the pain goes by, having to at least deal with a constraint, as executive would do, can produce a constructive result, can produce a good idea. In fact, Tony, I think it may produce ideas an architect would not come up with, because you'd have other people around the table. So, well, just a minute, let me just give you one more idea. So, I know we aren't to the process of setting a final budget yet. And so I think it's a possibility to, if this idea has merit, to say, should we go about doing a plan B? And I'll tell the chief, who's here, yes, people might go back to their office and say, this is more than painful, but I could see us saying 7 or 8 years from now, when the town of Orleans has a very difficult budget picture, 7 or 8 years from now, and we haven't done many of the things in the long-range plan, I could see our future FinCom sitting around saying, 7 or 8 years ago, did they consider one option or did they consider another option? So I admit, it is painful. I did learn early in my career. I went to public administration school, wanted to get into budgeting, got my dream job with the state budget office, and realized budgeting is really sort of a process of allocating dissatisfaction. It's you go to a series of meetings during the day and you look back and say, most of those meetings had some pain. Maybe I should have gone to dental school. I would have made more money. So I know what I'm saying. I know first I don't have a complete plan. I know first that I'm not an architectural firm to do this, but I do think why tonight, I think it may be something to talk about in case one of my neighbors does come to the meeting, and I hope they do, and say, this is too expensive. And we could say, I'm just putting words in somebody else's mouth, it may be too expensive. And just to do a check and balance, we're going to go through an exercise, not an expensive exercise, not expensive that, redo what we've already done, but a different top-down exercise. I'll stop. It may not have merit, but I thought tonight I should bring that to you.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Alice. Tony, you've already spoken a couple times. Let's let Alice have a comment.
Elaine, I'm happy to yield to David if you'd like to. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just two comments and one question. It's for those guys, actually. I'm sorry, 2 comments and 1 question in the complimentary. I was the guy who stood up there during COVID 4 years ago and worked very hard to stop the process to build a fire station. Not because we didn't need a fire station, but because I think it was going to be a disaster. And I want to compliment you for actually going back with the new administration and doing incredibly hard work to get those pieces of land, which I think makes all the difference in the world. So thank you. You did the right thing. Second, I'm a big supporter of the net zero. I'm from that background, construction, and I've been a big push for passive back when I was in the Energy Committee many years ago, and I'm the liaison. So I'm really glad to see the development of the Energy and Climate Committee, creating policy, having the confidence to say to you guys, and you guys having the confidence to lead and actually do it. So thank you for doing that. To that end, I'd probably go with a flat roof and make it really efficient and a lot less expensive, which may, if you make that point, it may help in the voting process to try to assuage fears of overexpense. I am reticent, or I get spooked by things being rushed too quickly, but I think this is at a process where it's thought through well enough, and I don't think you're going to save a lot by making other changes. I think you're in a good spot. The question is, I'm complimenting you on that too. Go to the net zero. It really should be done. And the question is, Mark, and you might have not seen the email. You'd sent something saying that you made a note in your email saying septic has a number, but I didn't see the number anywhere. So just curious. I know it's a carry number. It's just a carry number. It's not a real number. But what, in order of magnitude, what are you guys carrying for? Because I know you have a dilemma between different sewer options, maybe an on-site septic. What kind of things are we talking about?
Right now, the number in the in that extensive cost analysis that they're carrying is about close to 190.
190,000?
the
Okay, and that's to
septic.
run a line to get somewhere?
That's just for the septics, Title V on-site septic.
Okay,
system.
okay. It can go either way, yeah. Okay, thank
To
you.
that point, Madam Chair, if I could add, just so I don't forget some things that came up. Again, through more detailed design, Rich, Waldo, working with our OPM, are going to look at the alternatives for a sewer connection this way, a sewer connection down to 6A. There are a number of things in play, but having these numbers as well as having a vote on a number is actually kind of what Tony said. This is the max, but that actually, as I said during the select board meeting, it really scopes and guides us through what will be another 7 or 8 months of finalizing detailed design, going out to bid. We know the world is nuts right now, but this is going to allow us to control the cost, control the focus, other than keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and the world is going to go on fire. I feel this is one way of Orleans controlling its own destiny by having this vote, by getting this feedback, and doing the other iterations. To the point, John, you mentioned about Plan B. I think we could say to voters, there are plans A, B, C, and D. In fact, Tony knows that the building committee, they're evaluating the concepts, each with different cost, as David just noted, happens to be, if you look at what's called a net zero, not meaning any of them could be net zero, but they just factored that in because it's a flat building, boxy.
A lot more efficient.
A lot more efficient from a standpoint of no gables, no heat loss, much better. And David Little tells me, I'm looking at my schedule, I think it's May, which will be perfectly timed, May 9th. He's looking at, what was it, May 6th?
Building committee on the 6th.
He's planning to try to get confidence and maybe even a vote on the design from the building committee. That again, as you know, would be advisory to the select board. To me, if they went with the box building, that's the lower cost, you get my vote. So I think all that is factoring into positive signs, but also taking the time to consider these options. So to your point, John, I think we could say to voters, we really have looked at 4 plans, A, B, C, and D. And the lowest cost one, if the committee votes, is going to be the preferred. And again, as Tony said, it'll only allow, once you can focus on that one building, more depth of analysis to say, okay, now we know the space, now we know the details. It can only refine the numbers to get that 60 down to a better number.
Great, thank you. And Mark?
Sorry to butt in here, but I wanted to just address some things that John had mentioned, which I understand your perspective on the kind of that top-down approach. One thing I would say, though, is, in this form of government where the voters are kind of, they have that democratic say in this process, we are bringing forward a project that we know is needed, and so we're giving the voters the opportunity to take a vote on a project that meets the needs of the department and the operations of the department, right? So when you go forward here in this early stage of the process and you're starting to look for this funding, we're bringing forward a project that is needed for operations. So I think that's kind of something you could mention to folks as you talk to them.
So could I just say that you're absolutely right. And in fact, while I think Orleans has done the better job, but that's because I've watched this, you know that around the Commonwealth, the process that I'm talking about took place because why? Towns at town meetings rejected exactly the words we are hearing tonight. I don't reject those words, but they were rejected at town meeting. We have a town, I think, well, let me go another place. We have one town I know that did that twice. And a lot of what I read when I said that was not what Kevin's saying about we are controlling cost. They're saying, I know this town over here took your low number and they were lower than that low number, which they could find in this case. So I don't disagree with any of you except for the fact that, and yes, I I would think that we have a good chance, the way we've done this, to not follow those other towns. But the reality is, it's been voted down in several of those towns. And then they go back and go through a process like I was describing, forced on them, okay?
And it becomes more expensive in the end.
And you know, that's a point that you've made, John, about comparing other projects, and voters will do that, right? They're going to look at, well, what did this town do? What did that town do across Massachusetts and beyond? The reality is we can't be comparing those projects because Orleans has different needs than Weston or Lexington or Great Barrington, right? Every community has different needs. There's different services that come out of those facilities. You know, maybe one has a dive rescue team, many don't. One has, rescue as part of their fire station. Some are just fire. One project is simply a satellite station, whereas ours is a headquarters, and there's increased costs related to that. You know, you look at a site complexity. Our project is looking at approximately $6 to $7 million just because of the site complexity. That may not have, could be applied to another project elsewhere. So there's so many factors, and we've talked about this, there's so many pieces and factors that come into the square footage number that, you know, leads to where we are. And there are a lot of contingencies that are percentage contingencies in the number, escalations. It's a conservative number, and it is intended to make sure that the number we bring to town meeting gets us a fire rescue station.
Alice, did you want to make some?
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Thank you both, Kevin and Mark. You know, and Jeff, I know everybody's worked really hard on this. I will say personally that I think it's been great that the FinCom has taken quite a lead in ensuring that some of the data for long-range planning has been presented to the town select board and others, and we appreciate the help we've gotten from Scott, for example, and
Darren's on. Darren.
Darren?
And Darren. Thank you. I will say personally that there is absolutely no doubt, I've said this 100 times, and I said this on the floor at town meeting when this first was brought up, there is no doubt that we need a new fire and rescue station. And when we're, you know, when we're preamble every discussion with, you know, we need safe and responsiveness, it almost implies to me, I'm speaking just for myself personally, that asking questions and digging into the details is sort of anathema to, and that doesn't feel good, because our job, I see very clearly, is to ask these questions and to bring out the discussion that will prompt us to do the right thing for the town. I would echo John's comment that having worked on the comprehensive plan, that is going to be voted on at town meeting as well, there are a lot of big-ticket items in there that if the voters approve that plan, there's a sense that they would like to see some of those come to fruition. And that's why it's so critical for us to be looking at a way to cut the costs of this particular project. Now, I listened very carefully to my colleague Nick, and he's absolutely right. The town needs a lot of help in the area of rescue and ambulances and whatever. My understanding from having looked at the plans and having toured the full facility, Jeff did a fabulous job with a detailed tour. I understand deeply how we need this, a new station. But I understand that there's quite a bit of design put into training facilities with the expectation, as the chief has explained, that towns from across the Cape would come for training in the tower and, you know, whatever, for fire training. So I've asked this question before, and I will ask it again. What have we done to reach out to those towns to ensure that the best station on Cape Cod that we've been told we will build is something that they will utilize? And has there been any kind of financial analysis as to what that might contribute to the use of this building? I may be wrong in understanding this and happy to be corrected, of course. But my understanding is we're anticipating this to be sort of a regional training site. And I would guess that if we're going to open this up to folks from other towns, that we would be charging something for that. So we need to have that figured into the cost as well. And finally, if in fact that's what we're going to do with this thing. Finally, you know, I'd like to say Tony had said that he discussed with the architect, and the architect said there are places where he can save, and he will find ways to find savings. This is Tony's point. I guess having worked in this arena for a number of years myself, people don't typically volunteer those savings up unless they're being told that they should find savings for the town, and please present us with some options. At several meetings when we asked, have there been some considerations to cutting back on some of these things, is my feeling is there's been like a no response. So you know, whether it's in your home or in your school or in your town, when you know, go sort of to the budgeting thing. I was basically a zero-based budget proponent in my work, but then when I sat down with the board and had to make the cuts that were required for us to stay more closely in the parameters that would be livable for them, we made those cuts. But we start with a zero base, we design what we need, and then we take a look at that. I looked over the last few days at some of the increased budget increases for operating budgets for our neighboring towns, including Chatham, Harwich, and whatever. Brewster, those three in particular, but others as well. You know, they're all under 5%. We're already at 7% just there. So I struggle, being really new at this, with having not had the opportunity to put the whole enchilada together, and that's why I asked for a summary, as we've seen presented by the town managers of some of those surrounding towns. I sent a couple of those out to folks. I think we really owe it to the townspeople to be able to say, you know, these are the financial items on the warrant that you're voting on in May, and this is what the tax impact will be for this year. We don't have the long-range capital piece in place yet, and I know we're working towards that. So I guess in summary, I would like to say, if we are in fact planning to have other towns utilize our building, what have we done to reach out to them to ensure that that is in fact going to happen? What are we anticipating for revenue from those kinds of experiences? And then I would say, yes, Kevin, I totally support your interest in seeing the costs come down. I guess I'd like to know that there's some directive involved from the select board that would require that to happen. We sometimes have to, you know, make decisions based on hard, cold facts and not emotional responses. So I would ask that we do that. And I will have a very difficult time supporting the $60 million ask if I am not assured that there will be some opportunity to make those cuts, and it's not just the big dream list of being the best fire station on Cape Cod. I want to also just add one more thing that I said recently the other day. I've brought some data forward in a couple of conversations regarding some of the folks that I consider to be without power and platform in this town, and they don't come to town meeting, which is why we see only 10% of our residents coming to town meeting, because they don't feel represented. I struggle with that. That is not me. And I make it a point to step out of my social circle, to talk with those folks and find out what's keeping them up at night. And many of them are thinking they're going to need to leave this town. That's not a good thing. That's all I have to say.
I can add, Madam Chair, just in trying to get to Alice's question, Chief, if you could come up on the training facility portion of the building, but to the point of the cost, and I heard it, and Tony did as well at the last building committee meeting, the importance of the committee recommending and the select board ratifying the choice of the design, say it is the net zero concept, will allow Ted to really roll up the sleeves and get to the next level. Each of these phases in a design process get us more bright lights put on the components, the spaces, the choice of equipment, the choice of siding, all of these things will become more available to us. So I can say just from one select board member, I'm absolutely with you in terms of the commitment to not only the transparency, but asking those questions. And again, look at the building committee. You've got people like the chief, you've got Rich Waldo who knows and has built things, you've got folks like Tony representing your interest, so I feel confident that again, the 60 million is tough to swallow, totally difficult to swallow. I remember back on the sewer plant, we thought we were good at 48 million. And then COVID and everything happened. We went and had to ask for $12 million more dollars. Tell me that wasn't a big nut to get over, but we did it. And frankly, you look at the cost of sewer plants being built now, thank God we did what we did, really. So again, I'm with you in terms of realizing we all represent the entire interest of the town. You know, I heard a public speak say, you know, we have all factions in town. I never believe that. We don't
No.
have factions here. We represent all of the town. Those that are struggling, those that don't even look at bills. We know the spectrum. But at the same time, we have to be totally responsible, including the space needs that I'm sure the chief can talk to.
Thanks,
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to hold you accountable
You got
for
it.
that speech, so thank
Got
you.
it.
Jeff, welcome.
Good evening. Jeff Deering, Fire Chief. Just briefly related to some of the spaces in the potential new fire rescue facility. We've gone through a number of exercises over the last number of years with different architects, what are called programming exercises, really a bottom-up. What are the potential needs of the building? How many people work in the building? How many people could work in the building? And that helps drive the design and size of those spaces. We don't currently have any training space in the fire station. Zero. We use the apparatus space or we use the day room. So to move away from that type of thing would be ideal to have it in-house. We do a lot of our department functions at the police station or in another community. So the training space that is currently in the conceptual plans has enough room to hold 48 to 60 people, which we think is the build out of the department over the course of the 50 years that that building will probably be in existence. There's also a space in there currently for medical simulation. Most of what our staff does on a daily basis is related to high risk, complex medical treatment. They carry 50 different medications in the back of the ambulance. Medical simulation has become very clear that it is a appropriate training mechanism for paramedics and EMTs. We want to be able to do that in-house. Right now, we have to send people sometimes to 4Cs or other fire departments, or they don't do the training at all. So that's what we're trying to do. Many of the other spaces in there are in the mezzanine, in spaces that would be open. The training tower is part of it. We don't have that. We've had preliminary conversations with Cape Cod Community College with their paramedic program, preliminary conversations about a potential agreement to hold a satellite paramedic program if and when this building is built. Hopefully it's built. But what the financials of that are not clear to me yet, and neither are to the community college. I envision that perhaps that we host here in Orleans, because we have a facility that would be available at different points. Like, our staff will use that training room on a daily basis, but they're not in that training room every single second of the day. So could we have a relationship with Cape Cod Community College or another paramedic program that could train some of our staff and then also train regionally? So there's opportunities, but the financials for that, I think it's very preliminary because we don't have the space yet. And it's an evolving thing right now. But our staff is going all over the place to go to training because we can't hold it in the current facility.
Tony?
Chief, please don't go. I want to answer some of the things that have been here that I've learned over the. John, I agree with you 100%. Plan B is awfully good do. And I think in the presentation that we make, we ought to make it clear. The chief makes it clear why we need it, but I think someone perhaps from the select board ought to talk about the Plan Bs, because there have been several iterations of what we want. The other thing you should know is there are several construction people on the Firehouse Committee, and hopefully we'll stick those people's feet to the fire. Chief, I want to ask the other side of the question about other people, the training facility. I agree that it's nice to have a conference room, and that doesn't add much to the cost. But can you explain why we need a tower when you could train at somebody else's tower close by? And that seems to be a piece of the building which is maybe superfluous, I don't know. Tell us why we need a tower.
The training tower, I think, is an essential piece of future training for the Orleans Fire Department that we don't have now. And when we do go to do the types of exercises, trainings, things like that, that would be potentially completed in that, that means that a fire truck and firefighters leave our community on overtime and go to another community and are not here protecting it. So if we're here running those drills in the tower and an emergency comes in, drill stops, they answer the call. Call ends, they come back, they pick up on the training. We have to take companies out of service many times a year. We take shifts out of service for half a day. They go to another community, they go off Cape to perform many of the exercises that we would be able to perform. Up to live fire, that's the one thing that we're not going to be able to do in the tower, which is I'm okay with. We would have to send them to another facility. There's going to be one in Yarmouth that's going to come online very soon that we haven't had for a number of years. But up to those different exercises, different drills that our staff need to do to be proficient in their job, we'd be able to do them in-house.
So there's a trade-off between what we might spend now and perhaps some extra pay to going to another tower, but we might be able to save money on the tower? I mean, I don't want to ask, I don't want to turn this into a discussion, because I'm not capable of understanding. I'm just saying that this is a question that I think many people in the town will want to know, and you've got to be prepared to answer that, and I think you need a more sufficient answer than
May I just speak to that? Is that just, let me just give you an example. 19 West Road, the new fair project. Humongous residential multi-story building. The longest hallways I've seen in a residential structure, probably in my career. How we attack and handle a fire in that building is much different than in a single-family home. Much different. There is nothing of scale in Orleans that matches that building right now. Even the old Colony Village is a much different construction and design. So, as an example, within that structure, there's standpipes. Those are plumbing in the wall that we hook hoses up to, we can bring into a building, that kind of thing. That's not an exercise that we do on a regular basis because most of Orleans is single-family homes. So we've had to adapt our practices to anticipate this concern. Within the design of that new tower, it would have a standpipe system. So now, as new firefighters come on, or even my experienced firefighters, today we're going to practice for that fire at that structure. We can go out to the tower, we can spend half a day practicing on it. If an emergency comes in, the drill stops, we can pick it back up, those kind of things. But we don't have those types. That's just one example of why this tower is important.
And if I can add to that,
Yeah,
Madam Chair, and I'm glad I was raising my hand exactly on the point Jeff made, because shortly after town meeting, you'll see Zoning Board of Appeals is likely to approve the Governor Prince many multi-story buildings on that property that as well, the chief in the future, and we're talking less than 2 years, is now going to be responsible for. Not to mention an urgent care facility that is a very different set of circumstances should he enter there to save lives, unlike their life-saving that they do every day. So we have really evolved as a community in service needs. So thinking today, as the chief is desperately trying to think 50 years out, is part of why these spaces are being defined the way they are.
Yeah. John?
Well, I want to come back to, is this fire station too expensive? And the comment that in the town of Orleans, we do not compare ourselves to anyone. Well, that puts Orleans in a field by itself, because all of the people around this table know I sent out a table. And the table was prepared by another town hall. And the table listed 20 projects. What was the population? How many fire stations did they have? What was the square footage? What was the cost? I have 4 more tables prepared by other town halls comparing their town to other towns. So when Orleans Town Hall says, we can't compare ourselves to anyone, well, they aren't in line with the practice of other towns, because the other towns not only present that
It's in the
data,
study.
they present that data to the to FinCom, and they present that data before town meeting. They say, we are comparing ourselves to other towns. So I'm pretty puzzled by that.
It's in the study.
In terms, in
Mark?
terms
John.
of,
John,
in
we're
terms
not
of-
saying that we cannot compare ourselves to any other towns and we don't do that. That's not what we're saying.
That's what I heard you say.
No, what we're simply saying is that you can't compare our project, it's not apples to apples. There's different needs, and so when you make a blanket point that we should look at populations below 8,000 and look at what square footage they have, you can't do that because you have to look at the individual community's needs. As a seasonal community, we may have 6,000 or so year-round residents, but in 3 months or so of the year or more, we're much higher than that, right? So you have to factor in all of these pieces. We're not comparing to other communities' projects, but it's important to look at the components that go into the square footage calculations for each individual's,
Exactly. Let me
individual
make
community's
myself
project.
clear. I wasn't saying that I'm doing this. I'm saying Orleans has not done this and other towns have. I agree with everything you said. It should be done properly. Back to Tony's points. Alternative A, alternative B, alternative C. None of those alternatives are based on what did other towns spend. They all are looking just at Orleans. It doesn't say, it doesn't compare our budget, our proposed to other towns. These are designs that are possible. I understand that. My point is, it should be done the right way. But the fact that Orleans has not done this, has not provided this to FinCom, is not providing such data to town meeting, puts us out in a different position than other towns. I'm sorry I wasn't clear.
I really have to get a two-bit in here a little bit, because I have to agree with Nick. Orleans is significantly different than other communities in the Commonwealth. And I would have to look back at Judy Wilson coming in here and needing to increase her budget, because the demand from the senior community in our town is so much higher than that of anywhere else. And I have said around at some meetings around, like the Council on Aging yesterday, we need to take pride in the fact that we are the elder community. We need to take pride in the fact that we have a fire department that takes care of us so incredibly well. That's part of the expense of living in our town. And Alice would like to come back to when you were saying we don't know what it costs. Darren, at the select board meeting, did make a presentation about what this would cost. $581.49 per median value for a $60 million firehouse for the first 3 years. If we did a $50 million firehouse, it would be $484. So each.
All in, I was saying all the financial requests on the warrant.
Right, well,
We haven't had a, yeah.
but anyway, I think when you say compare Orleans to Westwood or Great Barrington, I think we have a significantly different type of community here. That's number one. Number two, when I think about infrastructure, in terms of what services are most required for a town to provide to its citizens, I think the number one most important thing that we give to our communities is clean water. That's just like nothing else happens without clean water. You can't educate your kids, you can't have food, nothing happens without clean water. And then right behind that, I think I would say DPW almost, because they keep everything going, and then comes the fire and police. So when you sit there and have to balance, and that's part of what we do, is sit and start to weigh, what is important to this town? Is a community center more important than a fire station? Or how do we balance those? Which is why, coming back around, I want to say what Ed has been doing in terms of seeing what the debt service is going to be on each and every taxpayer as we add these giant capital projects. And also, I've been listening to you all very quietly. Last Friday, Nick and I were out with a group of people looking at alternate technology systems. There were a group of people from Martha's Vineyard there, and people on Martha's Vineyard are leaving the island, can't afford it, can't live it, can't pay for that IA system, have to leave the island. And it's black and white. So I don't know, infrastructure, water, fire, to me, they're right at the top of the list.
Before you go into more of that, page 62 of Ted Galante's study has a comparison with 4 other towns. And verbally, he talked about what he's tracking on an ongoing basis. So I don't buy that he hasn't done this. Sorry.
Elaine?
Sure, Ed.
I think this is, I think we really have to market this article very carefully. And we're asking the taxpayers to make a very personal decision. And I think we've got to provide them some information on a personal level. And by that I mean, what will this $60 million fire station cost you, the average taxpayer, on an annual basis going forward, beginning in fiscal year '32? I recall Darren and Scott Wallace working up an algorithm that was able to do that. And I believe the range that it came into fell between $500 and $700 for the average. And when I say average, I mean the median assessed value. That's the average, not
The 1.3 million.
not the mean and not the mode, the median. And I think it's incumbent on perhaps you, Mark, at the town meeting to say, $60 million, so I'm going to fall back in my chair. But you could say individually, you as an average median homeowner, you're going to be paying $700 a year for the fire station. And make it personal. How many times have you guys heard, how much is it going to cost me? And the answer is 60 million. No, it's not.
That's right.
It's going to cost me $700 a year. And then I can make a personal decision. Do the angels that show up in those ambulances, are they worth $700 to me?
$2 a day.
That's my decision.
Yeah, just.
I would strongly recommend.
Thank you, Ed. That's a great point. And, we did bring up, Darren did make a brief presentation on the cost, the average cost at the meeting last week, and shows, in the presentation, you'll probably see it online, but I think, wasn't there another presentation that
Yes.
has been put together?
Yes.
For something to
So
find.
it shows you.
581 and
based on-
44.
Right.
Yeah,
What I'm
Yes,
saying is.
absolutely.
Article,
We agree
make
with
it
you.
personal, in the article, don't show up with a piece of paper like that and say, read the fine print. Get up there and say, this article is going to cost you $700 a year. Are you willing to pay it?
well, it's less than that, but yes.
Well, whatever.
That's the one thing, but excuse me, the other thing that we have to stop saying is 60 million, 60 million, 60 million. The range is 53 to
Right.
59. The architect 4 times, I think, at least, was asked the question, and each time he said, flat roof, 53. Gables, 59.
Ignores the $4.5 million for design and engineering. It ignores the $3 million.
But that's all in there. We sent you the
Does
analysis.
not include the money for the parcels of land, the $2 million
free cash.
for the land. So it's not 60, it's not 53. Add the 4.5, add the 2 million for the property. You're getting up well into 60.
We understand that.
I mean,
those
I
points, but
disagree with you there.
When we're talking about the cost of the construction,
Right.
we're not going to put those numbers into the budget because it's not part of the request. So we will talk about those things, right? Because we all know that.
Let's Let's be frank about it.
Exactly.
We got 60 million on the warrant. That's what it is.
Yes.
Don't tell me it's 53. If it's 53, change the warrant. If it's 60, leave it in the warrant. The fact is also, we bought land, we hired a $4.5 million consultant to do something for us. It's, all that adds up. We're really well into the 60s for this piece of, this fire station.
Tony?
Mark, I'm addressing you as I would address town management, if you will. It's very easy to get defensive about all these questions on a facility that we absolutely need. However, from a financial point of view, these are questions that should be answered at town meeting, I believe. It's not just the operations that Chief Deering, who runs a wonderful department as far as I'm concerned, it's why do we have to pay this? And these people have to be told, so it seems to me there have to be two parts to the presentation and not be defensive about it. And so I just, not that you are, but I just want you to be very aware. I've made presentations to, 5,000 franchisees, 10,000 franchisees trying to get them. And you had to hear some of the questions I considered ridiculous, but I had to answer them.
100%. That's what I'm doing here for you tonight, and we all work towards that. When I rebut someone's points, it's usually because I have information that is a little bit different, and it may come across as, I'm surprised if it comes across as defensive, but if it does, it's not intended to be that
We don't
way.
have any ridiculous questions anyhow.
No, every question is important.
And he's a guy who slept in a World War II ship in the bed.
Dick?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think there's a general tone here that is being driven by the fact that we have started, Ed has done a lot of work, some of the work is done by the town, to see what the cumulative effect of this kind of spending is on the taxpayer. And it is startling. So we're throwing up some flags. And I think that they are flags that need to be considered and looked at hard. The town can't manage the kind of increases that seem to be coming up based on our not yet in-the-ground plans. And kicking it off with a $60 million bump is a real big start at a lot of money. So that's what's driven this, I think, from everybody's skepticism here is how can we continue to have a town that people can afford to live in?
Yeah.
And that's the driver here. So,
Yeah, the question is the cost.
Well,
and to John's point, when a bottom-up is done, no wish is left off the table. That we know. And so the pain you were talking about, that's when some of the wishes say, not going to have it.
If I could add a little bit on that.
Sure.
I do think we have left many wishes off the table, not by virtue of great ideas or requests, but by virtue of the site. We have constraints that the site would not let us do all the wish list items. We have to be good to our neighbors at the middle school. We have to be good to our neighbors at the elementary school. These parcels we acquired are integral to now the design and save us impact, save us cost. But I think the site itself has given us enough challenge to reduce the wish list. I really do.
So, Peter?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up, it seems to me that the answers to all of those concerns that might be floating out there are really here. Mark, when you kind of listed the issues around the kind of the danger of the comparable approach. I think maybe just one nice slide or presentation that kind of shows that would really allay a lot of concerns that people might have. The uniqueness of Orleans, the demographics of Orleans in terms of the medical acuity that you face. Those are all factors that are kind of driving what we need to have, notwithstanding the fact, and not to use this analogy, but we've been kicking this can down the road
Right.
as long as I've lived here.
Totally.
You know, and it's time to kind of let people know, these are the deficiencies that people have to work in and live in, and there's tremendous potential liability, personal liability, that these people who provide an outstanding service are facing if we don't clean this mess up. And we better get it done. So, you know, what I've kind of heard is we really have the answers to a lot of these questions, and when you kind of tag that along to Ed's point, yes, it's going to be expensive, but here's what it's going to cost me. So if I was paying for an ambulance run because I didn't have insurance, it'd be $1,400, $1,800, $2,000 a year for one run to the hospital. Here, you're getting this whole umbrella of services for $700 a year. So somehow I think if you kind of put that down there, and the last thing I would kind of say is kind of going along with kicking the can down the road, there's also a cost avoidance cost. If we go back to when this was first kind of presented, and you add on the escalators for construction, we've spent probably 10 or 12 million dollars, maybe even more, if we'd addressed this problem when it was first brought to our attention. And the last thing I'll leave you with the cost escalator, we have a problem with hot water in our house in the summer because we have a large number of young ladies who are with us for the summer. So they're screaming because the outdoor shower is cold. It's cold in the 3 bathrooms in the house.
The fire department?
Well, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I will.
They'll be there.
Anyway,
We're
I
all
called the
hazards.
plumber, I said, what do we need to do about this? Said, well, you gotta put in a bigger tank, or you gotta put in 2 tanks. So they came, they looked at it, they gave me an estimate, I got it this morning, for an 80-gallon water tank that meets all the new codes. $8,000, okay?
How many days a year?
Well, but to keep peace, I will pay anything. So the message here is, if we don't get this done, the 60 million, God only knows what it's gonna be, plus the human cost here. But you've gotta be able to wrap all of these very cogent, genuine arguments along with the value of what you do and put it out there so people can see it up on the board. Because a lot of people are gonna come to town meeting totally
Oblivious.
unprepared to what this is all about. A lot of people are gonna have preconceptions. The $60 million figure, that's gonna be an issue. But I think you can drill into that and explain how you get to whether it's 53 or 60. But if we don't get at this, it's gonna be 70 or 80 if we don't get off the dime here. So, anyway.
And I'm sorry, before I forget,
no.
really quickly, there's comments being made about if we approve the 60, we're gonna end up there because, there's no incentive for us to not spend the total amount. I can tell you, from our perspective, there is a lot of incentive to not spend up to 60 million. There are so many projects, as you all know, that we are working towards, and to reduce that number would be great. So we are going to work hard to not spend up to that 60 million. I just want to put that out there.
So,
Okay, thanks, thank you, Mark. And Alice?
Yeah, Elaine, while Mark is here, I just want to ask you a couple questions, Mark, about the handout that you gave us. Thanks. It said that, included is a cost estimate along with a required hazmat study. What about the removal of that's where the cost is, not the study. So what do we have for an estimate? Or has he given any thought to this? It might not really know till it's studied and happened. Do we have a ballpark?
In the contingencies of what the number is included, it's in there. So if you look at the contingency numbers, there's a large percentage of contingency there for those types of things. So they're calculating in that into the number.
Are they calculating that into the 60 million number?
Yes.
Okay. And then what do we mean when we say that things not included in the cost estimate are typically covered by the town?
Relocating
Budgetary,
people, yeah,
within the budget, within our regular operating budget, like legal fees, et cetera.
and moving expense.
So those will be in the FY '28 or? So those are costs that the taxpayer will see, but as opposed to being part of the 60 million, these are going to be additional costs that we'll see in an operating budget. So just trying to get really clear, because the real heartburn here is when we say the taxpayer is going to be looking at a $500 to $700 increase, that's not the annual increase that taxpayers have to confront as all of these things escalate.
I can add to, and Mark can as well, but, procurement is a standard operating function of the town manager's office. So there are costs for procurement, there'll be legal review, they'll be going out to publications, but that is not, number one, a major cost, nor is it one that's going to move the needle, because it's assumed to be covered by town operating.
Within our operating budget. It's not going to be a major
Okay.
escalation in those line items.
Same with moving staff. When the PD was here temporarily and moved in a new building, DPW got their trucks over there, they loaded the equipment, they moved over. It
Okay.
was just
That's what you're anticipating,
Right,
that
right,
kind of happening. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Legal budget, we can
Cover.
cover those costs within our legal budget.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Only thing, if I could add to,
Sure,
again, I'm glad you
please.
referenced the questions. As you heard, and we try to be as responsive as we can, Ken Heritage came right at public comment, came down a whole list. Both Mark and I noted them. We got them to Ted Galante. We got to our OPM. We had answers yesterday. We sat and talked about it. And continue this. Every one of those questions asked, Alice and you guys, really only makes it better. And I know our team, the architect, loves working with us. Why? Because we participate in this. They go to other towns, it's like, yeah, it looks good to me. But when you don't have the input, then it gets built and people say, gee, we don't like this. We're going to love this facility. You know why? Because we're all participating in it. We really are.
And I
Can I
would,
make one note?
I have
Dick first.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Nick.
we talked about the cost going up. How about looking at the cost going down, backwards? I did that exercise using the 4.5% in this particular study. And if we went back and said that we had approved this plan, the big plan, in '23, the de-escalated cost would be between $47,000 and $50,000. Okay?
Million.
So,
Million.
but we were dithering in 2023, right?
Do this, guys. We can do it.
I encourage you all to attend on Saturday, again, Saturday morning at the fire rescue station, 10 a.m. Hope to see you there.
I think there'll be a lot of people picking up trash on the beaches for Earth Day, so I won't be there, but
Anyway,
You've got a front row seat in this conversation.
Yeah, I think
don't
I'm
have to
okay.
come, but everyone
If
else-
you don't see a lot of people, bear that in mind, there's a lot of
Kevin,
activity.
Jeff, and Mark, thank you very much. Thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Darren's here if you need him.
And Darren, thank you very much. Off to the next one. Subject on our agenda, which is Ed talking to us about some work due diligence that he's been doing about our debt. And I'd like to welcome Craig to being here, too, our new associate member of the Finance Committee, Craig Oliveira.
You gonna join us?
Could sit right here.
Yeah, come on up, Craig. Yeah, sure, I saw you come in at 6:30. So thank you for joining us.
By the way, Ed, thank you for doing this. I think it's critical.
Thank you. I agree with you. All right. Let me get my, I see on the agenda where I'm supposed to talk about the debt, but I can't. I'm going to talk about the sewer debt and debt service. I'd love to talk about the debt. However, believe it or not, and I wish Mark were here, the town has not received and issued its financial statements for June 30, 2025. And yes, today is the end of April 2026. We are nearly 10 and a half months after the fiscal year end, and we don't have, even Tangeman's gone. We don't have our financial statements. Without them, I couldn't do anything on our debt service and debt. So several years ago, we authorized the town to install a wastewater treatment facility and a sewer collection system throughout most of Orleans. And the state said, yeah, you can do it in 16 phases. We've completed the wastewater facility and 2 of the collection systems. And the taxpayers have authorized the design and construction of a 3rd collection system. At the upcoming town meeting, we're going to be voting on the design, I think it's $2.7 million, for the 4th collection system, which will have a total cost of $51.3 million. So, and despite several requests from many of us and others to the town and to the select board, we have not got from them a quantification of the cost of the treatment facility, the collection systems, the connection costs, and the ongoing usage of the sewer system for the average taxpayer. And by average taxpayer, once again, it's the taxpayer whose house has a median assessment in here. And I'm going to use average, but think median. So,
I'm sorry, Ed, what number is the median?
I have,
Is that 1.5, 1.3?
well,
The figure that was used for the fire rescue station that Darren was using for the 581 was 1.3 million was the median value.
Darren and Scott.
31.
Darren and Scott projected the median assessed value of the homes from 2020 fiscal year 2026 through 2032, and it goes from 1.15 million up to 1.4 million over that time period. So that's the range we're playing around in. And without, for me, and I expressed this with the fire station, without the information on the personal level, it's really difficult to make an informed decision on any of these capital expenditures. And we don't have it. I haven't seen it to date. I'm going to show you a peek at some of it coming up in a few minutes.
Ed, could you back up a minute and go back to the sentence where you said what we do not have from the town in order to figure things out?
Yeah, I've asked
Could
many
you just,
I've
yeah, no,
asked-
I just want to know
Okay.
in my brain what it is.
I want to know what the treatment facility, the collection systems, the hookups, the betterments, the usage costs are at the individual average homeowner level. I know them in the aggregate. I want to know what they are personally. So those are the major categories of costs.
Clarification question?
Yeah.
When you say the whole list, are you saying the gross cost, which is the actual cost to the person, or
No,
are you
I'm-
trying to differentiate that from what the town carries as debt?
I'm doing.
so I
it-
know.
I'm doing it on a net basis. If we receive a 25% grant from something in the state,
Water-
I adjust
Water
it.
Trust.
Right. How about betterments, though? Because that
Betterments, I
doesn't,
net betterments.
no one's
I-
subsidizing that.
Net betterments out of the total debt service and break it 20% for the town, 80% for the town, 20% for the user.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those adjustments are in these numbers that I've
Okay.
given for you. So,
So educate me, when I think about how we pay for the sewers, I think of like two worlds. The world of someone like me who will never get sewered.
Yep.
And what am I paying for my taxes? I don't have to worry about betterments and hookups and costs and so on and so forth.
You're paying 80% of the net debt service.
Correct. Whereas anyone who is getting sewered, you're having to pay the 20% betterment for your sewer
They're
use.
paying 80% of the net
80%,
20% of the
20%,
net debt. They're paying the
sewer use
hookup
fee. Then their
and the
their hookup.
usage.
Right, right. And that part there, the hookup and usage, that type of thing is going to vary homeowner to homeowner.
And widely,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah. We'll get to it.
Okay, thank you.
So let's look at the debt service and the debt. Everything I have here and all my comments, I sourced from Darren Tangeman and Scott Walker and the website, thanks to Lynn Bruno and her knowledge of the website. So let's look at debt service costs as of March 2026. And so this is, I hope you can read this. This spreadsheet goes out to fiscal year 2052, and I cut it off at 2035 because I think after 10 years, the lack of data makes the numbers meaningless. We only have only four phases included in the numbers. So as of 2026, the annual debt service is about $2.4 million for all of the taxpayers. That's the 80% of the total debt, adjusted for grants and the betterments. So that's what the town's debt is. That's the town's debt service. And you look down two more rows from that number, and you see what the annual tax burden is on the average homeowner. So they're paying almost $400 a year for having the sewers in place this year. You travel out to the right, and you can see not much happens. Well, it pops up. Yeah, next year, our debt's going to pop by $25 million or so, and the debt service personally is going to go up from $400 to $550 a year. That's going to be your annual cost to live here for sewer. And you can see in 2030, Phase 3 gets funded, and its debt is about $40+ million, and the debt service jumps to $5 million for the town, and it goes to $700 for all town managers. And you can, go ahead.
My understanding, when you debt service to me means the interest that's being paid on the principal.
Yes, that's true. Debt
So
the
I-
debt service for sewers has two elements. There's the principal payment and an interest payment. The cost to build the sewers is funded separately and bears no interest.
Correct.
The cost to design, engineer, and inspect the sewers,
Right,
like the $2.7 million,
right.
is interest-bearing.
Right.
Is not eligible for the zero,
correct.
and is financed separately, and it has an interest cost.
So when we are looking at this debt service in here,
Yeah.
what is that debt service being based on? What is that?
That's the total debt service, that's principal and interest.
So, but that would only be the interest on the engineering side of things and not on the capital side of things,
Well,
right?
The principal, yeah, the principal is the big piece. The principal's like
Right, the principal's the 40 million,
yeah.
but it's just a teeny amount of interest.
The interest, from what I recall, is around $300,000 to $400,000 a year of the total. So we do get zero coupon bonds for the construction of the collection system. The design, engineering, and inspection is interest-bearing, 30 years, it's roughly 4.5% right now. So we are paying both, and this debt service is total debt service. Right, so you can see, our debt's gonna continue to grow, and in 2032, when Phase 4 is scheduled to come online, we're pushing $151 million worth of debt. Now, remember, as of June 30, 2024, our total debt was $105 million. Total debt. The sewer debt alone in 2032 is gonna be $150 million. Pad your wallets. And we also have then Phase 5, 6, 7, 8 through 16 coming right afterwards. And like we found with the fire station, what cost $20 million today is gonna be $30 million 3 years from now. It's gonna be $100 million a decade from now. So here you see my estimate of what your annual taxes as a homeowner here, not a sewer user, is gonna cost you for the sewers going out for the next decade. Let's look at the bottom 2/3, 3/4 of the page, and this is where the hookups, kind of an unusual term to use, but I think it has, it's a good term to use, because we are getting hooked up.
Yes, Mr. Fish?
Hookups come in, or the tie into the sewers, it comes in different flavors. You have the hookup and tie-in, that part. You have the usage, the water usage for the sewer, and then you have the betterment. And the betterment right now is 20%. I learned yesterday that the 20% betterments apply to Phase 1 and Phase 2 only, and that for Phases 3 through 16, it was passive voice. Someone is going to decide what the betterment level is going to be for the upcoming phases. I'm not sure who is that.
Probably the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Okay.
Well,
Just so you know, conversation with Scott Walker and Mark Reel, I asked them, because they did some projection in only 2032.
Yeah.
Said, what is, because we've been asking this over and over, what is your assumption? And they said, we're using the 20% assumption.
I think,
So, you know, that's, because there are assumptions built in. I just want to know what they were.
right.
but just for information, the decision for the 20% in the first two phases was made by the select board.
Yeah. Right.
I think
But
you're right.
Yeah.
I think keeping it at 20 makes sense. I think changing it to 30 or 10 or 0 or 50
Well-
is discriminatory.
Of course,
One
but
one party's paying 20, if someone else is going to be paying 30.
true. But what I'm saying is, we said who's going to approve it.
Yeah.
We know who's going to approve it because we know it's the select board. We had those hearings.
I
Remember?
was just taken aback that,
Yeah.
that the betterment percentage could even be changed and was being considered for a change, maybe not. But let's look at the, so hookup charges. Hookup charges comes in a number of flavors as well.
This is correct.
You got the construction permit, you got the septic abandonment permit, you got engineering and design, you got construction, you got restoration, which I think is re-landscaping your place after the engineer, or after the contractors come in and dig it all up. And you can see the ranges that we had in these are from the website. They are dated. I think I saw a reference to, a couple of years ago worth of numbers, so I don't think they're absolutely fresh.
My estimates for mine now are on target here.
Yeah.
And I'm close to the pipe.
Yeah.
My
yeah.
neighbor down the street who has a 300-yard
Yeah. Well, they,
driveway is his
construction,
problem.
the construction range on the website was $6,000 to $30,000, and I think a lot of that is distance.
Yeah, I mean, the 30,000 is at the,
An elevation.
Yeah, right. And then there's the specialized equipment, depending on where you live and where you are relative to the collection system and the pumps. You have to buy a pump, you may have to buy grinders, you may have to buy a backup generator, because the last thing you want to have happen is you lose power and you end up being the treatment facility. And of course, grinders and backup generators didn't have any prices in the website. And then, so you add that all up, and you're looking at $16,000 to $70,000 plus the grinders, plus the backup generator, and all of that. I think, Craig, didn't you have some live examples here?
Thank you. So I'm right down the street where,
You could, Craig, could you come to a microphone, please?
I can move this one over.
Sure.
Sit there.
Or just sit there, sure.
move it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so
Welcome.
thank you. I am in phase 2. We are right down the street, so we are part of that grinder pump numbers. It's sort of surprising that the grinder prices are not on the website because we have to buy them through the town. So I would think the town would have those numbers.
Would.
But I'm finding we're right at that $5,000 estimate for engineering. We sort of locked that in early. All the engineers we spoke to are saying that those prices are going to increase substantially because all the other towns are doing it now, supply and demand. Also, sort of through this process, have realized that there's certain requirements that Orleans is putting on that other neighboring towns do not have. So part 1 is the $5,000 engineering. After everything is all said and done, I'm responsible for about $2,000 to $2,500 paid to the engineering firm separately to certify that everything was done. That is not required by other towns according to the engineering firm and the construction. The construction folks that I had out to quote prices are sort of saying other neighboring towns don't even require an engineering firm. They sort of trust them to do the hookups themselves. And so that's a substantial cost savings to some other towns on the Cape down the street.
Which other towns do you know, Craig?
So they quoted Barnstable in particular as sort of allowing if you're a certified contractor for the sewer hookups, you can design the plan and get the town to approve it that way. So they said that there's thousands of dollars of cost savings for folks in Barnstable. So I just sort of wanted to mention that as we look down this punch list of what we're all responsible for as the homeowner, that there's costs that we're bearing because it's in Orleans that other towns are sort of saying are not part of the hookup expenses.
That's interesting.
Which was sort of surprising to me to find out this late in the game.
That's curious, very curious.
The costs?
Yes.
I think I was quoted as sort of 9,500 is sort of what they're estimating. But again, they said it's just sort of you get the price that the town is going to tell you. That the town, I believe, allegedly locked in phase 1. They bought enough for phase 1 and 2 or 1, 2, and 3. So someone somewhere knows what the cost is, but.
I would suggest that perhaps you would like to take the initiative to talk to Kevin about that.
Yeah.
Kevin is on the county board of sewers, so he will know I would think that he would know the cost and why Orleans is doing it the way it is versus the way a town like Barnstable
Yeah.
is doing it.
Yeah, I just thought it was sort of interesting
Yeah,
as we sort of look
sure.
here and say on top of the debt burden, there's the homeowner sort of responsibility. And I get it, right? It's my house, I got to do the hookup. But all these extra expenses are really inflating the bill. And these estimates too are going to need to be indexed for inflation over the next couple of phases to the homeowner. But also they're probably going to increase more than the 4.5% because of supply and demand.
So Craig, do you know at this point what your hookup total cost will be? Any idea?
So I need a grinder pump. We're going to obviously need a backup generator. So we've been sort of removing those. We're we're looking at, without the generator, probably 45 to 50.
And then you have the betterment on top of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the tree work that they need to get done to put the grinder pump where it needs to be. It's,
And you don't have to answer this question, but you do know that there is an aqua fund where some people qualify for 0% financing.
yes, yep. And I will say it's an amazing organization. It was great. I will say that even, not to get too personal about
That's
the
why I
whole
said
thing.
I'm not
No,
getting
no,
personal.
that's fine. I don't mind sharing. We're hearing from the town that you need to hire an engineer early. Kevin Galligan was sort of out there doing that. You cannot apply for the Aqua Fund until you have the letter to connect. So there's really sort of a gap between when the town is telling you to book an engineer for phase 2 versus when I was actually able to write a check from the Aqua Fund and hire that engineer. So there's a delay there if folks needed that Aqua Fund money. And then there's sort of 0, 2, and 4. It's based on income. So any working family can sort of fall in that if you're a year-round resident. We fall in the 4% category. So it's cheaper than a home equity loan, but it's still 4%.
Right, right,
And the commercial property doesn't qualify.
correct.
Seasonals do not qualify.
Yeah.
So I think there's a whole host of other things on there. And then I believe if you're, just for the record, if you're in the 0% category, there's certain grants, if you will, that the town is offering. But one of the prerequisites is that you're in the 0% category for that.
Yeah, fascinating, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks very much. Let's talk about the usage fees. So this being treated just like it was any other water usage. The water department will manage it and send it out. You pay a fixed quarterly amount of $57, which you do now anyway, and you continue to do so. 95% of your total water usage is going to be allocated to the sewer fund. I'm sorry, to the sewers. And that 95% is going to cost you $8 per 1,000 gallons per quarter. Now, all depends how many times you flush and how long you take showers
Don't flush.
to really figure out what that 8 times 1,000 times number of gallons that you use is going to be. Now, remember, for general usage, the other 5% of water, which I guess you drink, is at $3.05 per 10,000 gallons. So there is a substantial premium on a substantial amount of the water that comes into and goes out of your house that you're paying for.
Did you stumble onto the option of having a second meter in your house?
Yes, you can have another meter if, for example, you have an irrigation system and you don't want to pay $8 per 1,000 gallons. You can put a second meter. It's a term of art that I don't recall.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could have another meter, and it could be tied into your irrigation system, and it would not.
But your irrigation system is illegal because we had restrictions, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's another thing to do. So the usage fees are just another burden, and it's hard to quantify not knowing how many gallons of water you use per quarter. Then the betterments, and that, I think we touched on that a bit, but the betterments are 20%. You take 20% of the net borrowings, so you get 100% less 25%. You have 75% of the borrowing. 20% of that goes into the betterments category, and that gets charged on a per sewer unit basis. So 308, is it in?
That's what I was told by.
Yeah, well, let me say three.
Phase 4.
Let's say phase 4, let's say, has 400 sewer units. And it costs $51.3 million to do it. Your betterment charge on that $51.3 million at 75%, at 20%, at 400 sewer units is $19,237.50. That's your obligation to pay the town. Now, you can pay it over 30 years.
At what interest?
I don't know the interest rate, if at all, but I don't have that. And if that were the case, that nearly $20,000 over 30 years is $641 a year betterment charge. So, here we got $700 for the 80 percenters. We have $45,000, $50,000 plus $19,000 or $20,000 for the 20 percenters. All of a sudden, you're looking at these sewers could be costing you $1,500 to $2,000 a year in your taxes or in your water bill.
So let me ask a hypothetical question to all of us, not just to you, then. What does this mean about our continuing with sewers? Is this a case where we say the sewers are too expensive, we don't do it? I'm saying that
Yeah, I think
hypothetically.
I go back to, it's the taxpayer's decision, not ours, not the select board.
Well, it is the state. The
taxpayer-
state just mandates
No,
this.
The taxpayer doesn't know. No one's ever quantified these numbers and disclosed them to the individuals.
That's right, Ed, and no one's ever presented any alternatives.
Absolutely. And
It's-
David's
it's-
got
this
plenty
is-
of ideas.
That's exactly right.
This is what we're
Where I was
doing,
going.
Yeah,
this is what we're doing,
that's right,
and this is what you need to pay,
right.
So,
which is sort of similar to other prospects going down the road.
This is a model or a template that we can use for any of these capital improvements. It
Yeah.
all fits in the same.
But Ed, then the other piece,
I would think what David said, he was criticized for, but I agree with him. We're going ahead because we started and we're going ahead. And this
right.
doesn't make sense
rock the boat.
financially unless the voters feel that a marginal increase in the water quality, we have to deal with that. But there are other ways of doing it, as David has pointed out. And I think those things need to be explored before we go ahead with any more sewer expenditures.
So here's the thing about that, though, Tony. Maybe I said this last week. You have to go ahead with the Phase 4. The bridge is half built. You have to finish building that bridge. You have to have that sewage flow go into the taxes to pay for the sewers. And
it's cooked into the.
it is cooked in,
plan.
yeah, thanks to you. It's cooked in the books that you've got to do
Four is
that.
paying for three.
But that doesn't, so I absolutely get it. We've got to, in my opinion, okay, got to keep forward with that 2.7. Got to have that engineering design go for that Phase 4. That is part of what will add up to being the 60% reduction in nitrogen for Pleasant Bay. That's part of that whole system.
I understand.
Moving on from that, okay, I am totally with it, that this is crazy that we are in a drought, level 2 drought, okay? And what are we doing with all of our water? We're peeing and pooping in it. A third of our household water use, okay, goes to sewage. We have this beautiful, pristine, clean water. I mean, don't get me started. But, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on this. And I think all of us have to start thinking, because if we continue with drought, if our climate changes are making it that we're drier and drier, if we get like Provincetown that has no water and has to buy their water from Truro, and Truro is wondering where their water is coming from, I mean, these are the next steps that we, as a finance committee, because it's
It's unfortunate that Mark had to
Yeah.
He should have been able to hear this.
Well, how
Well,
about,
Participate in it.
yeah, he'll,
a number of people who were here that left should hear it, but they had the right to do that, However, I was going to say to Elaine, we've had some really good conversations in the last couple of months, and I'm really pleased about that. Most people aren't going to have the benefit of these. And I guess one of the things I'm wondering about, because I'm always wondering about this in regards to our, responsibilities as a finance committee. And somebody said to me the other day, this isn't a finance committee, because no one's stepping forward to really inform the town of the challenges. We tried to in our letter, and I think that these conversations have certainly made it clear. I'm not going to say I agree necessarily, but
I'd
we
be
need
happy
to
to resign if they want to join.
we need to think about how are we going to share some of this thinking with the community.
Segues into the next agenda topic.
And looking, I think I sent this out to a few people, but looking at a number of towns not just on the Cape, but around the Commonwealth. You know, these presentations of what each article means in terms of either, some of them do it in terms of the tax rate, and then you can figure it out for yourself. Some of them do it very clearly in terms of, based on the median, you know, home, this is what you can expect, as Brewster does. But I'm thinking, like, you know, because you're looking at this, Ed, and this is fantastic, but layer this now on in 5 years with that debt piece on the fire station. Forget about the 7% growth we've had in our operating budget that nobody's talking about. Layer that on, and that's only going to continue to escalate because we've made long-term commitments to contracts that we have to honor, which we will, of course. So, you know, it's the whole enchilada that we're just not seeing.
Yes,
And I
we are.
worry about
disagree.
that.
I think I really think we are really getting our teeth into what's going on. I really do, Alice.
I can't
It's not
tell
my
my-
fault. You know, people need to take some responsibility for being a citizen in a democracy and educate themselves too. They can listen to our meetings. All of this most of this information is on our various websites. And at this point, I know I can sit down and, like AI, Google anything and get information about, today I asked some gentleman who did not have the answer to this. I said, how much water does a urinal use? Is it 1 gallon? Is it a quarter of a gallon? If we had urinals all over this town, what would it do in terms of water flow? I'm just saying, all that's right there. So I don't, you know, you can, and people will come to town meeting, they're going to all be upset about the cost of the fire station, but they didn't take the opportunity to get themselves educated.
Well, Elaine, I
So-
agree with you, but I'm thinking that the average citizen could benefit from something like this. Why wouldn't we do this? Why are our neighboring towns putting these on their website? Chatham sends on their Facebook page, out of the town Facebook page, what the operational increase is going to be. It's whatever. I don't think we put
You
the
know,
pieces together enough.
The math to do that is incredibly simple. It is,
Shouldn't be hard.
it's seventh grade math to do it.
Should we do it for a handout at town meeting, which is what Elaine suggested we might do?
Yeah, David?
Just so long as it, you know, I've done handouts before at the town meeting, they never see the light of day.
No one reads.
I brought 500 copies of something on debt service to the town meeting a couple of years ago. I brought 495 pages back home with me and threw them out.
David, you had some remarks to make?
So, yeah, it's not going to be really for tonight, but just want to give you a sort of, I think it responds to a number of the comments made tonight. And Dick, you had said something, you know, there's the reflection of the tenor of the concern in the board, the committee, when you talk about in context of the fire station, is a real thing. I mean, there's an angst, I think, of the looming future debt. But it's unknown in many respects, which is why we've sort of been asking for that. And we've made some progress, but I think there's a lot more to go. That's a real thing. For me personally, I think the fire station, you know, we're going to do it. You know, that's me. I think it's a forward thing. I think the select board will do great if they make a decision before, if they can. If the fire committee and the select board endorses, that would be great to go with a flat roof and it'd be the least expensive building. But to respond to, you know, why aren't we handing stuff out? I was asked by Roger McDaniels of the, I always get the name wrong, Community Space, is it?
Or Community Forum, Orleans
Community
Community Forum.
To speak because I voted no on Article 25 for the engineering for Phase 4, just explain why. And so I accepted. I've never done this before, and so I think, you know, I've put together some information. It's a very short presentation. They say we get 10 minutes, so we had a little preparatory meeting yesterday. So I think it might be a good opportunity to tune into that or attend or watch it. I have to get a piece done. I'll send it to you guys just as an FYI once I get it completely done. And the gist of it is just, it's financial. You know, I too have felt for a long time now that the overwhelming size of the sewer debt is not being discussed in its totality. It's being discussed in chunk at a time. And that's a defective way of thinking. It's effective in the sense that you get people to vote for it, myself
boiling your
included.
frog.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of them. I voted for it, so, guilty as charged. But I began to think a little more deeply in the last 18 months and trying to look at the more comprehensive view. And my concern is that when we got this spreadsheet from Darren, which I haven't read carefully, but you had made the point. I said I was confused by, we got to find out for sure, the sewer debt just stays flat for all those years. And I can't figure, and I guess you had said they weren't adding the new phases.
Correct.
Which that would make sense.
Amortizing the $52 million that's outstanding now over the next 50
Yeah,
years.
but it's not adding all the phases
No.
going, right, which is really the heart of the question.
But I adjusted the numbers in here for that.
Okay, so I'd like to be, this goes out to 2065, the way it's planned. And so the gist of the presentation will be a comparison of a sewer approach, which, I think the sewer is necessary for certain portions of the town that we've done. I think it's time to pause versus a compost or urine diversion approach. And the costs are orders of magnitude different. The real issue, as their own consultant acknowledges, is that the technology is good. Is there a question, will people accept it? Will they adapt to that? And that's a fair question. And so the point of it is to do, as you're saying, put it in front of people, share all the numbers, and say, okay, are you willing to do a pilot program here, which thus far I've had no support for, but we'll see. We're working on that, and I'm hoping you guys will think about that, and maybe for fairly small money, we can do that. And that process is to start to generate understanding and an acceptance or not acceptance. And if the town says, no, we're not going to do it, so be it. But that's the gist of it, so I'll stop there. But it's a financial issue at its core, but there's other aspects to it.
I think another thing that adds it, on top of getting the information out to people that understand and make a decision, it's the timing. There's a sign down in the lobby that the warrant won't be available until April 23rd.
It's today.
Is that today? Well, there was nothing there. So taxpayers, they're going to pick up the warrant as they walk into the town meeting. And you expect them to thumb through 35, 36, 37 articles, think about it, do some thinking in their minds and come up with a yes, no. I think it's unfair to them.
Absolutely.
I think not only providing information and financial implications at the right level, and timing is incredibly important. Let everybody have a month to think about it. Don't put it off till the last 10 minutes.
Just one thing, I note that our former Finance Committee Chair has her hand up. Are you all okay with having her speak with us? Usually you don't let somebody not on the board speak.
Yes.
So is everybody okay with that? Lynn, did you have some remarks you wanted to make?
Yeah, I do, if you don't mind. Just, Ed, I was reluctant to give you the number of properties in phases 3 and 4 because I was afraid that what you were going to do was what I think you did, which was divide the number of properties into the number and use that as the betterment, because that's not how it works.
No, I was going to use that as a proxy for the sewer units.
Well, but that's not what it is. That's not how you calculate the sewer units at all.
Sewer units is the lowest average 3-year use of water.
It's a somewhat complicated calculation, and my fear is that what you've come up with as a betterment fee per sewer unit is higher than what perhaps might be real. Also, I believe that there is a dollar amount for the grinder pumps in the sewer use rules and regulations, which were sent out to all property owners in phase 2. So to say that it's not available is
We found out it's
maybe-
about $9,500 now.
not looking in the right place. So my concern is if you're going to use information like this, it would be really helpful if it's correct. Thank you.
Thanks to Lynn.
Can she explain the correct calculation?
Because otherwise you're spreading misinformation,
So,
and it's not useful.
so if how many sewer units are in phase 2?
It hasn't been calculated yet. They will not calculate the betterment for
For 3
phase
years?
2.
For 3 years?
They will not calculate the betterment for phase 2 for another year until they have the total cost for phase 2. And then they go through the calculation.
Can we get a clarification? Could we get a clarification, Lynn? You know, you can get the final cost. I think on a budget status, everybody kind of knows what that number would be. What I'm asking is, when you do a betterment, the betterment's 20% of that cost, correct?
Again, if the best thing to do
Is
to
it-
really
wait, I
understand
just
it
wanted to say, is it yes or no?
is to read the betterment bylaw to get the perfect right answer. Read the betterment bylaw.
Okay, well, I just told by the town
Current-
staff, wait. Town staff says they use the number 20%. So on a budget basis, is that a fair thing to do? I don't want to do something unfairly, but I think that's what they told us. So is that an unfair or very inaccurate way to estimate on a total cost of a phase what the betterment would be for the total?
I will have to say, I don't think it's fair for us to ask Lynn for that now.
Okay, she doesn't
and-
have to. I just
and-
thought- I
And
thought
go back
she
to
was trying to get it
exactly what she is saying about, go back and look at the actual regulation. And I also will say, this morning at the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners meeting, there was discussion at Lynn's request that sometime,
Advisory committee meeting today.
Water Management Advisory Committee? Okay.
Yeah.
That it's sometime this fall that we need to have a dedicated meeting about sewer financing, so that we are all getting the same information, same time, all committee members and community members that are interested. Tony?
I think this discussion is important. However, I don't want to delay. The numbers are big and expensive, and I don't think we need to be precise to say that. And I think we can use numbers that are roughly correct and get a decision and get information out there to know whether a betterment is 15% or 20%. That's important to know, but it's not important enough to delay getting out this information of roughly how expensive. And we can say these are estimates, just something, but they are in the order of magnitude that we think is right, and that's what we should do. And we can label it. Don't take these as literal, because they're not. And I think it's too important to wait.
Oh, sounds like you're going to change your vote.
I voted no.
I know, that's what I said, but you said it's too important to not wait, so it sounds like you're changing your vote.
Important to wait.
Oh, okay. All right. Alice?
Yeah, just follow up on Ed's comment regarding, having a warrant, which is on the website. People can look at all the details. Will they and can they? Is another question. But having things late and last minute is not helpful, right? I think we have to try to think the best of our citizens, that they do care about these things. They may not have the same capacity that we have to analyze those spreadsheets and come up with their conclusions. And so again, I will advocate for us, and I have absolutely no idea why we wouldn't do this, is to have a concise summary page. The other towns have had a little more. I don't know if some of you, I sent a link out to Harwich, for example, which has more than a summary page, but it's very, very clear in short order where the taxpayer dollars are going. And even this little sheet from Brewster gives a pretty good idea. Why wouldn't we do that?
Well, Nick sent out that sheet this afternoon that said exactly which departments get which amount of money.
I didn't get that.
Are you suggesting that the FinCom would do this, or that the town?
No,
I'm not sure what the.
No, I don't think it's our job.
You know-
I think we sent a message on to the town asking that they do this. And I hope that all of you would feel that that's a really important thing for us to do. And if it's too late, then lessons learned. Let's go forward for the fall town meeting where we arm the citizens with more clarity, whether it's more clarity and accuracy with the debt on the sewer piece or the whole piece. But those tax bills are gonna be significantly different.
Yes, they are.
But for today,
Significantly.
Alice, for today, and just for your, in fairness to you, in fairness to the town staff, they've done a lot of stuff. What are you actually asking? Are you asking for something to be generated at this point, new? Just so it's clear, I don't want, they do a lot of work, and
I know,
don't
and
wanna
they've
see
done
them
a
just
great job.
complaining.
No, they've done a great job, and we,
We have asked so much, I see what we are all asking the town staff to do. And I have to say, I was reflecting a little bit with Nick. The amount of information that we are getting from this town staff, the finance department, the town manager's department, is wildly different than we ever got prior to this particular
That's
team.
wonderful.
I mean, if we could get, but let me tell you, they have just gone way overboard to be as helpful as they can, I find. So I just have to stand up and defend the staff.
And we can still say we
And-
were missing something.
Yeah,
But the
yes, of
question is,
course we
I'm
can.
just,
Thank
I'm
you,
just curious
David.
guys, for tonight, I just want to know, do you need something specific? Rather than just, it sounds vague to me. So if it is something specific that you think is fair, are you making a suggestion that the committee would ask them for this? Just so in fairness as to what are we doing right now? Rather than just a general statement. Because I don't want to leave it left that they're wondering, what are we talking
It
about?
may be asking for too much from them, and they
Okay.
have done a very good job of providing us with what we've asked for. And I think it's probably now a matter of record that the Finance Committee needs certain data in order to make decisions, right?
Right, but we also have to ask for it in a timely manner, Alice. So I took what you asked for this morning, and I sent it to the town manager's office.
Yes.
I have
and-
not heard
and-
back.
Right.
We are
And
3
that's
weeks away
fine.
from
If they-
town meeting.
I understand that. And if it's easy to put together because the data is there.
And I left it
that
on
would be
them to say
great.
that.
And
If
if
it's
it
in this-
isn't, then
right,
it isn't.
right.
But going forward, we have something to ask for the fall town meeting.
Okay, so it sounds like they have the request. and
Right.
They can, okay,
Correct.
okay, all right. I just want to know if we're supposed to decide something today.
Thank you very much, Ed. Any further questions about Ed's presentation?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you. Remarks for town meeting. We have 2 articles where there are no votes. So the people that voted no, such as David and/or Tony, would be speaking to the article about why you voted no on the Phase 4 for the sewers.
I think David should talk about it. He knows far more than I.
Thank you for volunteering, David.
Just to double check.
speak up
I might be so traumatized from next Thursday, I can't do it, but, is it mandatory, or is it just something I can?
No, I mean, no, but you should be prepared if someone asks you. Someone is very apt to ask you, as happened to us at that
Oh, yeah.
October meeting. Do you remember when somebody put you right on the pinhead? Right.
So I'm not, you're not,
So my
you're not
point is
looking
be
for a
prepared.
proactive statement, just to be able to respond.
Right,
I'm just-
I think
Yeah, that's
so.
fine, that's fair, yeah. I don't want to
think
make a scene out of it, so, okay, thanks.
And,
What's the other-
I'm sorry, did somebody just say something?
I think it was just by mistake.
Oh, okay. And the same would be true about the no votes on the fire rescue station. So that would be John?
We haven't voted.
Oh, that's right, of course we haven't voted. How do I not know that we haven't voted? Okay, I may put together a very short statement for town meeting, representative of all the things that the Finance Committee has been discussing in the past couple of months. I think I agree with you completely, Alice. The past 3 months or so of the Finance Committee, we're really getting into the meat of what finances mean to this town. And I think I want people to get a very 90-second squib on, we work hard to figure out what is happening financially for this town. And I will send that out to you in the next few days. Moving on from that, we have scheduled, I'm skipping down a little bit here, from that, we have scheduled a May 7th meeting here, and I won't be here. I know David won't be here. And Nick, you will probably not be here as well. So from that point of view, you could still have a quorum if you wanted, and then one person you would need to elect to be chair of that meeting. So I will leave it to the 6 of you. Let me come back to that. because on May 11th, we will be meeting at the Nauset Regional Middle School at 5:30, and that's when we will be voting on the fire station. And we can further discuss, if we need to, remarks that I will be making in front of the town meeting, and anything else that we want to put on that town meeting agenda. Tony, did you have a question?
I do. I think that we, as a finance committee, should not just report or stand up and say negative things. I think we should say positive.
That's exactly what I
things.
intended. This is what your committee has been doing. These are,
We should, somebody from the finance committee should say something at town meeting, positive about the sewers and positive about the fire station, so that we can, at that meeting, we talk about it.
I'm happy to do that.
But I don't think it has to be positive. I think it just has
No,
to
no,
be
I'm-
objective.
I'm saying,
Rather than advocating, you could say,
So we've discussed it thoroughly, and here are our
here's the
votes.
financial implications.
If you have questions, let us know. Sure, John?
Question for clarification, because I've never seen a vote taken only at town meeting by FinCom, so some of you may have the history that that has been done before, but so when we're at FinCom at 5:30, we are not going to discuss the fire station, we're simply going to vote. Is that correct?
It can be a discuss and vote. I would say tonight was the discuss part of the fire station. I think we explored it
We
pretty.
just vote on at 5:30.
Yes, we don't have a vote on tonight's agenda. So that vote has to be on the next agenda.
I'm not understanding something. At previous town meetings, someone from the finance committee has said, I think from a financial point of view, this makes sense, and I think from a financial point of view that this does not make sense. And I think we should continue that as finance committees, because as members of the finance committee, looking at our charter, we owe that to the town. And I think we should do that, as we did in the past.
Didn't we come to the point that we're not giving speeches on each one? Yeah, so I thought we were just available to answer questions.
I don't understand why that is. I think we have a responsibility to say something.
I don't think that's what our charter says that we do. We give our vote, the vote is there in the warrant.
The charter says we inform the
I think our vote is our,
taxpayers of our findings and recommendations.
I think our vote is informing people. And if they
I
have any
think our vote
questions-
is necessary but not sufficient.
Tony, we had this conversation last year, and.
And I disagreed with it.
That's fine. No, that's perfectly fine. I'm just saying, as a committee, and I think the town concurred, that, if it's 9-0, and we've had plenty of meetings and so on, I don't think we have to get up and give a speech. It drags the meeting out, I think essentially what it boils down to. And so I think we agreed, unless there's maybe the committee wants to make a motion and vote something differently. I thought we agreed we weren't going to give a speech for each item.
I think the nine.
I might be wrong. Am I wrong?
The 9 zeros, I
I
speak
think-
for themselves.
I think, yes, that's right, and I agree with it. But I think the firehouse and the large number there is too important not to say something from the finance committee individually. Our vote certainly says something, but it's necessary. In my view, it's not sufficient, and that's not what we should do.
I also disagree with this process because look what we're doing. We're voting on the fire station at town meeting. The town warrant requires, if there is a split vote, there is an explanation of pros and cons. There is no time to prepare adequately any con from 5:30. We're going to finish at 5:50, and in 10 minutes, we're supposed to then present the cons. I protest this.
Why? If you've decided to vote against today, you have a month to prepare your comments. And then you come and vote, and you stand up and say why you voted against.
Tony?
I would like to make a motion that someone from the finance committee speak independently of our vote at the town meeting, both positive and negative, if there is someone who is that way. And I think we should have that, said out loud. So that's a motion I move.
Any second?
We don't need to make a motion and second and vote. This is what, this.
You know, I have to say, I was at the meeting, the select board meeting with John Conager, and the discussion about how the town meeting was going to be functioning. And one of the conversations there was about limiting the amount of time, not amongst the select board and so on, but they also, this year, have purchased a large clock and are going to be trying to limit citizen speak to 2 minutes or under. By charter, we can speak up to 5 minutes. But I think I would have to follow suit with what the select board and town moderator are choosing to do about keeping things short. I think a 9-0 over most of the 35, 33 articles speaks for itself, Tony. If somebody wants to ask us a question,
We are
fine, but I don't think we should be taking the time.
We are specifically appointed separate from the town management and separate from the select board, so
Correct.
that we are not constrained by what they believe.
Correct, but it doesn't mean that we have to,
Doesn't mean that we have to, but.
no, and it doesn't say in the charter that we have to speak. Alice?
You know, I wanted to be sure that we commended the gal who's taking minutes. I read the minutes that David sent out, and they were quite good. And I thought she did a very professional job. I appreciated that. I don't believe that the recounting of the discussion that we had in regards to the letter was fully revealed in those minutes. And I'm not suggesting that we have to go back and amend those minutes. But I am concerned that we have not had an opportunity, as you had said, Elaine, people don't read the letter anyway. Where is our opportunity to let the taxpayers know how hard this has been for us to wrestle with these requests, given what we know regarding the upcoming tax impact? I objected to us having in the letter, for example, that wasn't it wonderful that we were well underneath the 20% debt ceiling? And I'm thinking, like, why would we even go to 20% when most towns keep it at 7 to 8 maximum, and then they're even under that? So there's all of these little pieces, but I just wonder if we're going to be able to give some preliminary statement, not pro, con, negative, or whatever, but just very clear of how difficult these decisions have been. And that will speak for itself when there's an abstention.
Alice, I
or a
don't think the rest
negative.
of the town cares, that we're doing that here, we're making the hard choices here. When they come in that meeting, I don't think so.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, I
to hear
think, because
that.
I listened to John Conaga talk with Kevin and Kim and Mark about how to arrange the town meeting. If somebody wants to ask us a question, we are right there.
Okay. Fine.
And
That's
you
fine.
can always make a statement, you can do that.
I mean, if you choose,
Walk onto the
understand
floor.
if you want to get up and speak to a particular article, you can certainly do that. We do that.
But not from the front of the auditorium.
No, if you're speaking from the point of view and education of a finance committee member, I would hope you would feel comfortable enough to get up and say so.
But from the front of this,
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
So if I felt strongly about a particular article or a particular piece of information, I could walk up and
Right.
John would let me have my 5 minutes
Yeah,
or less.
right. He'd probably, spaghetti whip you to two.
Tony, I think that's exactly what we
If
want.
that's the case, that's fine.
But I don't think we have to have prepared remarks in front of every article.
Either, but if that is, that's fine.
But if any one of us feels strongly on one of the articles and we voted in favor or opposed,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not right to say the only way I get to talk is if I vote no. Some of us feel passionate about something, but we also agree with it. So that's nice if we can do
So,
that.
That's fine. And Elaine, I think that it's important for the Finance Committee to be shown at the front of the counter along with the Select Board and the Town Management as a group We are thinking about these things, and it's not, and the vote is, as I said, it's not enough to get the message across. I think someone has to stand up. But if you say we can go and stand up, fine.
You feel so
And I
moved.
withdraw my
But-
motion.
Tony, that having been said, I volunteered right from the get-go to say I'm going to go up right at the beginning of the meeting and say, here are some of the things that we have been wrestling with in our tenure on the Finance Committee, just as you did, just as you were saying. We do a lot of work for this town. What we do.
Elaine, another point we might want to make, it's very unfortunate that the citizens petition that Tim Cunahan had submitted coupled the resident tax exemption with the long-range capital planning. I have worried about the FinCom voting down long-range capital planning. And it's unfortunate that those were coupled together. I'm sure no one on this committee would have intended to vote down a commitment to long-range capital planning, but we did. And
Some of you did.
some people did. That's right. But that in itself warrants some statement, I think, because yikes. If we don't get going on the long-range capital planning, we're going to keep having these conversations every year and going nowhere.
Well, they are. That's underway. It's underway. They are doing this. They have a study, which is a very positive step forward.
Yeah, I know, but I'm thinking.
Listen, let's move, it's getting late.
It's very late.
Our vote is.
We have already approved minutes of March 12th.
The Bruins started at 7.
Oh, well, let's, first things first. Anyway, we've already approved the minutes of March 12th. The minutes that I sent out this morning were April 2nd. Those are not on the agenda, so we will be voting on them at our next town meeting.
Yeah, very good.
Do we have any liaison reports or announcements?
Mine was taken care of with.
Okey-dokey. Anybody else? So I will leave it to the 6 of you to decide whether or not you want to meet on May 7th.
Can we consider a different day around that
No.
time?
No, because
that you
these
could-
rooms are completely booked. It is really a pickle to get time in on these rooms.
We're both gone for the whole week, so it's just
Oh.
it's not going to be that.
Okay.
You don't have to do it for us. I'm just saying, don't change a day. It won't make any difference.
And you had
Are you
6:45.
guys going on vacation?
Yes,
Are we
we are.
funding it?
That's right,
You had 6:45
That's right.
for that, correct? Yeah.
because there's another meeting here prior to it. So I don't hear anybody campaigning to have a May 7th meeting, so then we will all meet together on May 11th, 5:30 at the town meeting, for town meeting at the middle school.
Can we make it 15 minutes earlier? Because we want to make sure that we get the vote in.
Okay, so we'll change that to 5:15. Okey-doke?
Yeah.
Good. Good suggestion.
Okay.
The only value of meeting on April, May 9th or whatever that was.
Is for the remarks that I would be making.
No, but for us to call the meeting to order, then go into an executive session, and then all of us talk about the fire station. Make a decision then, and then vote on the 11th.
We don't have an executive session.
Yeah, that wouldn't qualify for an executive session.
What wouldn't? Well, we'll.
Discussing the fire station.
We'll pass the meeting, we'll pass some minutes, we'll talk about upcoming, and we'll go.
Very cute, but can't do. No can do. So any liaison reports, announcements? Looks like everybody's anxious, in which case I would entertain.
Thanks for putting up with us.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.